Good evening and welcome to the G52 podcast. My name's Tom. I'm here tonight with my colleagues and fellow hobby fiends, Nick.
Hello.
And Stu.
Hello.
Hello. You alright, guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Excellent. So we're a new 30k Horus Heresy podcast. And we've been kicking around in the hobby for a little while, and we decided to get together and start recording some of the crap we talk. So, yeah, welcome to the first episode. Plan for tonight is, give you a bit of introduction into who we are, what we're doing, what we felt like we wanted to do with this podcast, and really give you a background on what we do before we move into a couple of little sections we've come up with. So, I guess I'm going to pass the buck to start with, and I'm going to let Nick introduce himself to you. So go on, Nick, tell us who you are and what you're up to.
Hello, I'm currently drinking special needs beer because I'm celiac, which means if I was drinking normal beer, then things would not go well, and I'd be very ill, and you'd be hearing noises on the podcast that you wouldn't normally want to hear. So cracking on with my gluten-free, I don't even know what this is, gluten-free Vagabond Pale Ale by Brewdog, which our local gaming club actually stocks now. I've forced Chip into getting us some gluten-free special need beer just for me, so that I can keep drinking beer rather than cider. But yeah, anyway, my name's Nick, and I'm recently back in the hobby. So I've spent about just over 2.5 years getting back into 40k. Got kind of a little bit lost my way, a bit worried. It wasn't anything to do with any of the people or any issues at all with the pricing, which seems to be lots of crap that people are complaining about recently. I even like some of the recent releases from GW, but the issue is I just felt in general the mood for the game was horribly focused and centered on competitiveness, to the point where everywhere I turned on the interwebs, everything I read, every conversation I heard was people min-maxing lists and talking about the most recent broken formation, and generally saying things like forge the narrative with a snicker and a laugh, when that is exactly what the entire game system and hobby is about. It's about representing really awesome stories and amazing characters and battles on the tabletop. We could go into discussions around how the rule set and the dice rolling in general doesn't really carry over well for a competitive game. But again, I don't necessarily have an issue with that, because some game systems work really well, some don't. I just generally felt it was time to try something slightly different. And after conversations with you, Tom, and both of us giggling like schoolgirls and getting excited over all the 30k stuff, we realised it was time to try and push more people in the local scene away from the competitive side and get them into more narrative-focused gaming. We've partially managed that, although suddenly there's people with 10 quad mortars and 5 Spartans and whatever else. But generally speaking,
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Generally speaking, we seem to have done a good job. You've done a good job with the first event that we're looking at very shortly. Most people are on board. Most people are playing the kind of go-to legions that you might have expected them to, either from your understanding of what they were into from the 40k side of things, their particular chapter they were playing, or just, I don't know really, their personality type. You could kind of guess the sort of people that were going to go with a certain legion.
The legions they've picked seem to suit the way they are and what they like, what they want to get out of the game, really, isn't it? Yeah.
So that was good, because in a way you again, it's not necessarily forging the narrative, but you're seeing them portray what they want out of a game and kind of convert that into a list, into a painting challenge, into a hobby challenge, and then put it on the table. And that's really cool, and everyone seems to be enjoying a lot.
Rather than going for the most smash mouth list they can go for, they've picked something that interests them.
Yeah, they get excited about stuff, and they post the model they made, and they post a painting whip, and then you just think that's awesome. And then you hear all of the happy conversations about how they actually end up getting smashed by somebody else with another model, and then they go and make another model or buy another model or make another list. So there's definitely enthusiasm for getting really, really kind of balls deep into.
Yeah, to steal a phrase, there are definitely some people getting hard for heresy, isn't there?
That's it. They're loving it. So that's good. So yeah, I'm definitely on board with that. Going back to my kind of history, when I was very young, kind of pre-teen, I went to quite a few games days. One my father actually drove me to back in Birmingham when it was at the NEC or whatever the equivalent big arena was. I think it was the National Exhibition Centre or the National Indoor Arena or something like that. It was one of the
something like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And I was like 10, 11, something like that. My dad drove me to one. One of my key memories of that one was him missing the junction. Obviously, this is before sat navs. This is still old school, like paper maps on your lap, AA maps and stuff, and reading it. Me yelling, "You missed the junction! You missed the junction!" Him stopping in the middle of like I God knows how many 4 lanes, whatever it was, of motorway traffic on Spaghetti Junction. Him braking, stopping. I assumed he looked in his mirror and checked it was fine. Putting it in reverse and reversing at like 20, 30 mile an hour for about a minute to take the junction off so that we didn't have to spend 20 minutes like going around Spaghetti Junction to try and find the exit. And it was just amazing memory.
That's dedication.
Had you been watching 4 Weddings and a Funeral just before that happened?
Yeah, I think it's probably was it before that? I mean, I remember 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but I was thinking so 20, it would have been about 20 plus years ago, I guess, something around that time. But yeah, so that was one memory, and then the other really strong memory I have, I went up once on the coach, the local Games Workshop. Big shout out to Harrow on the Hill in London. Harrow on the Hill, massive. I went with the guys there on a big coach, like a full coach, and I mean this is the sort of thing that I'm to a certain extent missing. But we are definitely building up at the local club in the local area. It's starting to get to that stage again where you have like coachfuls of people wanting to go on a day trip. And we proved that when we went up to Forge World, to Warhammer World last year, was it? When we went
Yeah, about this time last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. So back in the day, you know, as a kid, there was a coach full. I mean, now it would probably take 5 months, 6 months of CRB checks and stuff. But at the time, it was for international listeners, all of you, a CRB check's a criminal records check, and it basically, you know, I'm inferring that you have issues with paedophiles these days. But back in the day, it was a coach. It was a coach with like a driver, and I think 2, maybe 3 GW staff members, who were all the awesome local, just from the local, local store, and then a bus full of like anything from 10-year-olds up to God knows, probably 40, 50-year-olds. But there's a lot of kids on the bus with no parents or anything, out for the day driving to Birmingham from London. So it was quite an adventure. It wasn't like Famous 5 go to Mystery Island or anything. It was pretty extreme. But yeah, the other memory I really have is of the walking into the hall and seeing on a big screen at the back they were playing one of the movies they'd made, one of the, looking back now, god awful short like 40k movies where they had really bad costumes and people in like power armor and stuff and terrible voice acting and things, but also the banners. I loved having the halls covered with I'm going to start making up numbers now, 20 foot 30 foot like banners of Space Marine chapters or whatever, and some of them were ones I assume that, you know, Games Workshop had printed out and covered the hall with, and other ones were local clubs. So clubs had actually made their own banners and brought them with them. So you had like almost like fraternity banners with the name of the club and like some crazy high Gothic, pseudo Latin stuff on there, like, you know, Harrow on the Hillicus, Maxicus, Awesomeicus, and all that kind of stuff. And like it was just really, really cool. And everybody was there to play games. There was a like, you know, bring and buy type thing. There was all the new product releases. It was just absolutely awesome, and yeah, I got that vibe quite a bit going back to Warhammer World for our trip last year. It was really cool. So that was a good like 20 years ago. I then remember I remember Gorkamorka being released just as I kind of stopped. I kind of suddenly hit suddenly hit. That's not the right word. I didn't hit women. I discovered
smashed into puberty.
I suddenly forced my way into the world of puberty and alcohol. Although I was a little bit young, you're drinking at like 15 in Harrow on the Hill. That's kind of normal. Get into
Yeah, I grew up in the countryside, mate. We were drinking at that age anyway.
So I've discovered your local cider. It's fantastic. But yeah, so discovered that, blah blah blah, years of computer gaming geekiness and all other exciting things. And then as far as hobby goes, it was walking past and kind of peering in the window here and there, seeing all the amazing 40k PC games that came out, following movies, getting a bit excited. Fast forward to being slightly older, slightly fatter, and having lazy time at home and needing to fill the void. And for some reason, I honestly cannot remember what it was. I think someone at work actually mentioned that they were playing. They were playing some. Is it Conquest, the 40k card game?
Yeah. It's the living card game.
Yeah, I think they were playing. That at a lunch break or something. God knows how it came up, and that was it. It just suddenly, I was hooked again, and then one thing led to another, and that was it. So fast forward, spent far too much money on 40k. I quickly realised that I loved fluffy, kind of themed, very particularly themed lists. I had crazy ideas, and I like to put them on the table. I get an image or an idea. Sometimes it's of a particular model. Sometimes it's an entire list. Sometimes it's some awesome story that I've read. I mean, most people, similar to a certain extent, which led to an entire Thunderwolf cavalry army. So every single unit was a Thunderwolf, Wolfie McWolf on a Thunderwolf, which was discussed.
Oh, the one that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The one that Mephiston.
Yeah, the one that Mephiston chopped in half. Yeah,
he chopped 4 of them in half in one go.
Yeah. So it was all fun and games until
I remember that list.
I discovered 2 things. One was if you hid your units on top of ruins that were so small on like the floor, I couldn't actually get into charge range because there was nowhere for them to put the models.
That was me again, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so like my walls were jumping up, trying to jump up Imperial ruins and getting shot to death by tactical marines because they couldn't get into charge, which was ridiculous. And also apart from that, I realised that as great fun as it was still horribly broken, and I'd never intended it to be a broken list. It was just meant to be an army of Thunderwolves, which looked really cool. It got worse after that. So then I moved on to Eldar pre the latest codex. I didn't actually finish building the list until the new codex dropped, and then I don't know really. I don't know whether I cried or kind of cheered with jubilation. It was a mix of both. On one hand, it's the fluffiest, best representation of every Eldar unit on the board that anyone's ever produced in any of the rule sets. And then on the other hand, there's some absolutely disgusting broken stuff in there when you compare it to the majority of the other codexes. So it was a great leap forward as far as fluff, but it also was a terrible, terrible leap forward in codex power creep. So everyone knows the issues there. Most of the units are undercosted for their ridiculous power level, and then you have stupid things like scatter laser, jet bikes everywhere, and God knows what else. So yeah, I had issues. I had an entire themed speed list, which ranged from all jet bikes to including some skimmers and hornets and other stuff in there as well. But basically, it was a Simhan kind of speed list. But it was no fun to play because all I ended up doing was spending my time math hammering in my head which unit, how many scatter laser shots I'd need, so therefore how many units I need to move into position to target each unit, and how many shots. Math hammer. Will I kill that unit? How many units will I need to shoot at it? 2. Right, move those 2. Will I kill that unit on average? Yeah. How many do I need? 2. 3 for that unit, 4 for that unit. Then I'd do it, roll a million dice. The opponent would go, holy fuck, how many shots? 6 shots is that? And then die, and then I'd move them back behind cover. And it wasn't really very fun for anyone most of the time. So
yeah, I was on the end of a few pastings to that list. That
it's just
it was an enjoyable game because I enjoy games with you, but it was never a game where I felt engaged in the game a lot.
Yeah, there was nothing there that was like, there was no, you weren't deeply involved in the story. You're like, oh my god, this is amazing. There's all these jet bikes flying towards me and whatever. It was more, how many scatter laser shots is that? Oh, how many saves is that? And then, oh, I can't shoot back. And that was
and then even on the return, it was, oh, I've managed to get some shots on you. Oh, you got a 3-up armor. Oh, well, I ignore that. Oh, well, you got a 4-up jink. You know.
Yeah, it's just stupid. And then we discovered the invisibility fun, and that made things even more.
Yeah. So, anyway, let's slide it on to where you are in the heresy.
Yeah. So fast forward, and been playing around with lots again. Fell in love with lots of different kind of model ideas, trying to represent things. I started making some Alpha Legion characters because I read a lot of the Alpha Legion books and fell in love with the kind of absolutely bonkers, taken to the insane max kind of secrets and lies stuff. You just literally never have a clue about what's real, what's not, and what's kind of psych warfare, and what's your buddy shooting you in the back, and what's their actual main attack, and what's a feint. It's all crazy nonsense, and you can kind of you can faux represent stuff on the table. You can just kind of say, this is loyalist, this is traitor, this is some objectives, and then even if you lose, you're like, wow, did I? And it gets a bit ridiculous, but it's really good fun, and some of the models are insane. Like the Headhunters upgrade kit is just absolutely lush, and so that drew me into Alpha Legion. My other love, which has become my kind of main love currently, is Mechanicum, and I have spent a lot of time building up some Dark Mechanicum. They're really dark and shadowy and black and stuff. And I kind of gone for I want to say the current timeline, in that they're not quite infusing demons and stuff into the tech yet. It's kind of post Scoria being released and kind of going, right, I'm going to play around with stuff and change some STCs and fiddle with stuff and whatever, but it's not full on full on witchy poo. It's not full on demonic engines yet. So there's a few variations. People might have seen a couple of pictures I've spammed around various groups and Facebook and Instagram and stuff of Thanatar and some Castellax and things. I've kind of made a bit more Dark Mechanicum with Chaosy bits and Chaosy legs and that kind of thing. So I'm focused on those for getting those painted up for our first proper event. And I'm just gonna see how they go, see how broken they are. Everyone seems to complain about Cybernetica, so we'll see how beefy.
Smash them robots into the ground.
We'll see how beefy poopy the robots are. But that's me at the moment. It's good. It's
awesome. Nice one. Cool. Right. So that's Nick, our resident soapbox expert, and so let's get you introduced to Stu then. So tell us a bit about yourself, Stu.
Hello, I'm not a celiac, and I'm not drinking expensive gluten-free beer, luckily. Though I am asthmatic, do sometimes get a little bit of dry skin. We're doing health things, aren't we?
Yeah. Health introductions.
That was health introductions, just in case anyone's interested. So I'm the oldest by probably about 5 years from these young'uns here. I'm a veteran gamer from the early 90s, so I think my first sort of hobby thing I ever had was a set of Hero Quest. Not long after it was released, so that would have been about 1990ish, I think. I was about 12 or 13 at the time. I think I didn't really do a lot with it then, but I was always interested in fantasy style things. I think my mum read The Hobbit to me when I was about 7 or something, so it was always around the house, fantasy things. I was always aware of it. And then I remember going shopping, being sent shopping to buy my mum some bits and bobs, and I was allowed to spend money on a magazine, and I picked up White Dwarf. And I can remember it now. It was White Dwarf 138. That was back in 1991, and I flicked through it, and I saw the little Citadel Miniatures symbol and the Games Workshop sign. I remember them because they're on the side of the Hero Quest box, along with the MB one, and I made the connection, and that was it really. There wasn't a lot in the magazine that was any good. I remember thinking there was lots of dwarves in the selling pages at the back, which I fell in love with, but most of it was full of Eldar and things like that. I didn't really do a lot with it for a few months, and then I found out my next door neighbour I hadn't met was a year older than me, and he he'd already fully invested in the game, and parents introduced us, and after the awkwardness of sort of teenage boys getting to know each other, it sort of kicked on from there, and I played. Started with Fantasy, 3rd edition, so that's the sort of big orange book for those who are old enough to remember. Played 4th as well, that was the first box set. I played Rogue Trader 40k and 2nd Ed and all the other games that were around at that time. So Blood Bowl, I think that was 2nd edition Blood Bowl, the one with the polystyrene board, and Dark Future and Advanced Space Crusade and Space Hulk and Space Fleet for those who are old enough to remember the forerunner to Battlefleet Gothic. I think I played a bit of Warhammer Fantasy as well. A game called Confrontation, I think it was that called. It was released in White Dwarf, and it was a forerunner to Necromunda as well. So really early stuff, probably pre-Red era GW for those who remember that horrible garish timeline. I played a few historical games by the time I got to 16, and then it kind of drifted away. Really, I went to as I sort of got to 18, and went off to uni. I kind of stopped playing games because I wanted girls to talk to me. Discovered beer, and then didn't really do much for my whole 20s. And then about 8 years ago, I came back to the hobby. I needed to cut down my drinking and going out and stuff a little, so I needed to find other things to spend my money on. Start with I played mainly 7th Ed and 8th Ed Fantasy. I think listening to podcasts, I think I discovered through Podhammer. So any Warhammer players, anyone that remember playing Warhammer at that era, I think Podhammer was one of the first gaming podcasts or wargaming podcasts out there, and really sort of set the standard for a lot of the things I've listened to since. So, and then after a little while, I turned to War Machine and Hordes. Long before Age of Sigmar came out, I didn't give up because of that. Just naturally kind of moved over. Played that for a few years. Played Malifaux and some other systems. So well away from GW. Still kept an eye on GW stuff. I was reading the Horus Heresy series as it came out because it reminded me very much of the sort of Rogue Trader feel of the fluff that I used to love as a child. So a lot of it was nostalgia probably rather than anything else. I dabbled in 40k a couple of times. I think I played a couple of games of 5th Ed. I remember buying the Space Wars when they brought all the new plastic kits. Actually went to one of the first games days I ever went to, or the only games days I actually went to. I remember picking some stuff up there when it was on pre-release, but didn't really play it much because I was still playing Fantasy at that time and sold it. I dabbled again in 6th. I think I played 6th Ed. I think I won maybe 2 games against Kurt. You guys know Kurt at the club. When Book 1 Betrayal came out, I was convinced I was going to do Heresy there, having already read a few of the books. Really excited for it, but there was no one playing any Heresy at that time. So I ended up using it for 40k. Played a couple of games and then stopped playing. And then I think 12 months on from that, sold it all to buy War Machine stuff because it was sitting there collecting dust. And then, sort of end of last year, Calth brought me back into it. I promised myself I was going to not buy it and not start playing 30k, but couldn't resist it really. It was too shiny. And I hadn't really been playing many games last year. I recently had a child, so he's 20 months old now, but last year I hadn't really played much for the first sort of 9 months of his life. You don't tend to find the time and space to be able to leave and go out and do things. So I wanted to sort of kick back in with a new system, and War Machine had gone a bit quiet for me. And I think about February this year, I messaged the club message boards, and Tom was pretty quick to answer. I think he was happy to see that people were interested in Heresy, and it's kind of gone on from there really. So I've only played a few games, so I'm in terms of rules knowledge, I'm nowhere near these guys. I can hear them talking about 40k rules, and I glaze over. And when I played 40k, they weren't Tau really, they weren't Necrons. I haven't got a clue what's going on. So I'm very much a noob when it comes to that, but I'm a veteran gamer in terms of playing war games and hobbying and all the rest of it, and all that sort of side of things. So happy learning the 40k rules to play 30k with, but was never really interested in playing 40k. Watching from afar, playing other game systems, it seemed like a bit of a mess, and not meant to offend anyone that still plays 40k, but like Nick's already said, it seemed too competitive. It seemed like there were too many different rule sets that didn't really work together. It just looks a mess. And War Machine and Hordes isn't brilliant, but it's quite a tight rule set. So if you're playing that and you're looking at 40k thinking I love the models, I love the stories, but hell, I don't want to be playing that game. That seems terrible. And Heresy seems the perfect foil to it, really. It's the community seems awesome. Everyone wants to have fun, friendly games. I don't really care whether I win or lose. It's a bit different with War Machine Horde. You kind of have to stay on top of the meta all the time. At this stage, I don't give a shit what the meta is, to be honest with you, with 30k. I want to buy the models I like the look of and paint them, which is my big thing, painting really and modelling. It's my main love, and enjoy playing in the games. So I've
give us a bit of an intro about your little painting studio, Stu. As we were talking about painting and stuff. Give that a shout out.
I was just going to say, I mean, we didn't really touch too much on what my main area of like the hobby is or anything, but I'd assume that yours is painting. I mean,
yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I've been running a commission studio for probably since the beginning of the year, called Miniature Realms. Prior to that, I probably had about 6 months off, but I was running a small resin terrain business, making gem-tip markers and bases and things, and I was mainly aimed at the sort of hordes and war machine market. It was too messy and too time consuming when the little one came along, and so since then I was looking for something else to do, and then the wife had a really good job offer and decided to go back to work early from her maternity, so I took some additional time off from my job, and I started doing a little bit of it then. And then last September, I decided not to go back to my job. And I've been a full-time dad and a part-time commission painter since then. Now, I won't get away with doing it for too long.
Living the dream while you can.
Yeah, well, I don't kind of bring home the salary that commission painting doesn't pay a lot, so I don't bring home the salary that I was before. But right now, it works with my wife's working and our childcare needs and stuff. So I'm enjoying it while I can. I'll probably keep the painting going, but I won't be able to take on as many clients if I was working in a proper, in inverted commas, full-time job. There's commission painters out there that will very much regard their job as proper. I do as well. Unfortunately, I can only do it part-time. That's the only reason it's not proper. But yeah, so if anyone is interested, check out Miniature Realms. You can find that on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and don't bother looking at the blog too much because it's can't be bothered to update it. WordPress apps are awful on the iPad, but I've been painting loads. I mean, this since I bought the Cal Steph, and I didn't really start painting until the new year. I've already painted over 2,500 points of my Imperial Fists, and there's quite a few pictures on the Facebook, on the Twitter and things, and I'll be posting them on the show, Facebook and stuff as well.
And they look fantastic.
Well, I'm quite happy with them. I've done them to a quick tabletop. I've done them to a
awesome.
Yeah, that's the look. I've not done them to my top standard because I need them painted, and I'm doing clients' work at the same time. But I've done them to the one of the tabletop standards I offer, and I'm quite happy with it. And I've got loads of solar auxiliary in bags, which I might well take a little bit more time on now. Once I've got a painted force to play with.
Now you've got a fighting force you can play with.
Yeah, I'll make it a bit more of a bit saying that if a new box comes out later in the year with what's rumoured, then I'll be probably wanting to add a few units to the fist. But we'll see how it goes. That's me really.
Yeah, cool. Excellent, nice one. Yeah, so I should probably introduce myself. I'm currently making a mess of highlighting some leather, so I'll just put that down, and I'll give you a bit of introduction to myself then. So,
Friday night
like
leather.
I said,
oh yeah. So Tom, what's
Friday night leather work. That's how I roll. Yeah, so my name's Tom. I'm back in the hobby a couple of years now. A fairly similar story to a lot of people I've spoken to over the years. Was playing hobby as a kid. Used to play fantasy. Played a bit of Epic, Blood Bowl, Necromunda, all that kind of stuff when I was a kid with some friends. Went off to senior school. Discovered rugby and girls and beer and all that fun things you discover when your hormones start kicking in, and sort of stopped hobbying actively. I always sort of kept an eye on it. Always used to look in the window of Games Workshop as I went by and read White Dwarfs and play the video games and those bits and pieces that came out as and when. But, went off to university and kind of just carried on doing that. Did a photography degree, so I was always doing bits and pieces like that and sort of running around on what I call the fringes of society, having a bit of fun. And then came back from uni after a few years down there. Came back, settled down with my now housemate. And was getting fat basically because I'd sit and eat in the evenings because I'd stopped riding my bike like I used to, and I stopped going out drinking like I used to, and I was like, need to do something other than sit on the sofa and eat and watch telly. So we were ambling around town one day and we were in Hobbycraft, and I picked up one of those Space Marines, 4 Space Marines in a box with some paints, and thought, I used to enjoy this as a kid, I'll give this a crack. And a couple of years later, so about 2.5, 3 years later, I'm now sat in a room with 3 desks and more paint and hobby crack around me than I can actually bear to believe. And yeah, so I got back into playing 40k. I got introduced down to our local club, Pork Chop Gaming, run at Incom Gaming. Basically because I used to work in the pub where the club is run, and I know the guy who owns the pub now. And I sort of went down there, got a few introduction games into 40k, spent about a year and a bit playing 40k. Enjoy it. I still like a game of 40k, but as the other guys have said, it feels like you've got to take your biggest smash hammer list out every time you play. There's no kind of, unless you're really playing with someone who you can really spend a bit of time structuring a game to and almost, tailoring your lists to each other's to make it a balanced, fun game. It's all a bit hardcore when you're just playing pickup games. So I still enjoy it. I like a good challenge sometimes, but I was getting a bit fed up of, turning up and seeing the same 5-6 lists at various places, and getting smashed repeatedly by Nick's Jet by Elder everywhere. And I've always was reading the Heresy books at the time because the Heresy was something I didn't really know a lot about when I was playing as a kid. So it really grabbed me. I read the books because I knew the basics of the Heresy from when I was a kid, but I couldn't believe there was years and years worth of books. So I got back into the books and then discovered Forge World's website, and there was a line of miniatures, and yeah, I kept to learn it from afar because I was sort of looking at, I couldn't really bring myself to drop all that money on all those resin infantry troops, especially when, it was only really me and Nick who sort of talked about it, and there wasn't a huge amount of interest from other people. And then Calth dropped, and I got myself a box, and so I decided to make conscious efforts that I was going to do it. And I think me and Nick talked and said, yeah, we're going to do it. Stu popped up on the message boards and said he was looking to do it. So I got 3 people together and just decided to get the scene going in Cheltenham. So set up a little group on Facebook, just heckled as many people as I could into doing stuff. And once the ground got going and people started, I started building an army, and me and Stu had a game, and a few people started playing. The balls really snowballed from there, and I decided to give ourselves a little event that we're running next weekend as a target, a little 1,500 point event for everyone to join in on, and it's kind of snowballed from there. A lot of people have come out the woodworks going, oh yeah, I've got a Heresy army that I didn't know anyone's playing it, and we've managed to get we've got 12 of us for this little event just out of our club, so I think it's not a bad showing for a small club. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm in Heresy now. I represent the 13th Legion, the best Legion out there, the Ultramarines. I've been an Ultramarines fanboy since day one, and yeah, painting's a big thing for me. I've recently done the MKA course. I'm now part of the MKA group, which is pretty awesome. Been learning to use my airbrush and generally getting heckled by people to do more painting. And so me and Stu spent a lot of time discussing painting. Me and Nick spent a lot of time list hammering, and yeah, generally enjoying the hobby and building some fluff and actually having a good game. So yeah, that's me. So should we go into what we want this podcast to do, guys?
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, where do we all feel we want to take this podcast then? What was our reasoning for being in and setting it up then?
So I can kick in with a couple of ideas.
Yeah, go for it.
Feel free to talk over me when I start slurring. I've had a few beers now. For me, it was mainly that there is some awesome podcasts out there, and you'll tell from the references, you'll be able to pick up our fanboy-ism of some of them. But for me, the UK scene was very much kind of focused on particular areas of the hobby, or it was focused on Black Library releases, or it was more someone's kind of personal blog. It was like an audio blog or something like that. So for me, I felt that if we were going to do something, we should actually do an all-round kind of 30k hobby podcast. So it's not just what we're up to, it's not just our opinion on things, but also has some battle reports, or it has me ranting about something to do with the hobby. It has some awesome painting tips from you guys, from Stu, or it has some amazing things that we've seen, how our local scene's developing. Just an all-round good kind of hobby podcast. I just felt the UK scene was kind of lacking that a bit. So hopefully, if we can get this thing going and going well, then that's what I think we should aim for.
Yeah, excellent. That's cool. I mean, what was your interest? I mean, we only had the conversation a couple of weeks ago about really doing it, and I think we were up at the open day, weren't we? And we sort of said maybe
chatting away.
Yeah, maybe we should do something, because we spend a lot of time talking. I mean, we've had this little Facebook chat group running for, God, I can't even remember why I set it up now. I remember setting it up about a couple of months ago. We started this Facebook chat, and we've kind of talked non-stop on it for a while, didn't we? And I think the conversation was, well, if we're sitting here chatting and you were sat out painting in your man cave and I was sat upstairs painting and Nick was looking at the internet,
not painting.
Maybe not painting. maybe we should try and record some of this crap. And I mean, some of the people who might be listening to this might have heard us on the Vangarian Heresy. Me and Stu were on there the other week. I was chatting a load of crap that turned out to be wrong, as you do. But we decided we start recording some of this crap that we were talking about, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's about having some fun, isn't it? I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of different podcasts with different game systems. I enjoy them. It's a big part of my kind of weekly media intake, more than telly. I mean, I'm painting a lot, or I'm sitting up in the middle of the night with a baby, and having headphones on is something that's really easy to do. So I love them, and I've always thought I'd enjoy maybe doing one. So part of it's just the fun of doing one, and then being inspired by some of the really good other, without blowing smoke up their asses too much, but some of the other good podcasts that are out there for 30k. There seem to be a really good community amongst them all, rather than sort of individual podcasts competing against each other. And I felt that there was, at this stage, before someone else jumps on and does it in the UK, it'd be a really good time to get a second UK one out there, really. There's two. There's two from Sweden. There's bound to be room for a second one from the UK.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get maybe a couple of English podcasts
from Sweden. But we wanted to get the UK represented a bit more in terms of numbers for the home of Warhammer as it is really.
That's it, and that's something that came up in the Q conversation, that while we were panicking about being able to get hold of the limited edition books and things, we were also saying a lot of it is about giving back as well, and it's a bit like, if you build it they will come sort of thing. But we've realized that with the local scene, as soon as Tom went to the effort of actually setting up an event, and not just me waffling on to people about, oh, it's so cool and all these models are awesome and whatever, and Tom saying, oh, I want to build this list and buying and painting these awesome models. As soon as Tom actually built something, he built an event, he put it out there, people turn up, people buy into the hobby. As soon as we kicked off, as soon as you put a little bit of effort in, a little bit of organization, people jump on board. So part of it, again, and for me, and again, you guys were in agreement in the queue, was it's about just giving back a little bit. It's fun. We can waffle, we can talk shit, we can rant. I can rant a bit, but we also get to give something back, and we get people kind of infused and energized in the same way that we get that from other podcasts. So it's great to just get people's minds going, and hopefully get some really good groups set up and grow the scene, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really awesome people in the UK scene doing stuff. We got obviously Greg Dan's putting on a great big event this weekend, massive heresy event. It's put a lot of time and effort into that, which is awesome. You got people like the MKA guys running painting classes, Miles at Little Legend, putting his time out there to, run tutorials for people. There are some really cool people out there in the UK scene, and we just thought, let's add to the pile. Let's make it a bigger community. And if that's just us waffling shit for 3 hours and you kind of want to listen to Nick rant on about stuff and me and Stu sit there and laugh at Nick, come and join our little conversation, and maybe hopefully we can run some events and get some soapbox talking and get the community going a bit, just add to our little corner of the community. I thought that might be a cool idea. Cool.
One thing I want to touch on is, like, initially we're going to aim for like a monthly rollout of episodes, right? Because we feel that it's a good kind of time frame to get some coverage of some stuff we've seen that's awesome, some Forge World releases. It's just a good kind of time
frame. Stu's in round our, obviously Stu's a full-time dad, both me and you. Well, I've got a full-time proper job, Nick. You've got apparently a full-time job when you turn up. So, we'd rather put out one good show a month than maybe rush 2 or 3, don't we? So, absolutely. I mean, that was kind of the focus.
There may be more. We don't want to set ourselves down to we're only going to do this or that, but I think we'd aim for one a month, and then if you get
to begin with.
You heard it here first. Stu's putting out 4 episodes a month.
Just Stu. All you're going to hear is painting noise.
brush,
2.5 hours of airbrush.
Oh god.
Awesome. So Shall we move on to section 2 then? I'll give it a brief intro, Nick, and then I'll let you explain it. So this is going to be hopefully the first of our regular sections, which is entitled "Something is Wrong on the Internet." Nick is our resident troll, though he claims not to be. So what we're going to do is try and build a discussion on some of these topics. We don't want it to be too troll-tastic, but we're going to try and discuss things that we've seen in the community and maybe take an issue and give it a good debate and see what we can come up with. So how's that sound to you, Nick?
That sounds good.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once?
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
First of all, I want to be very clear. I am not defending myself for the sake of it. I am genuinely not a troll. Okay, so from back in the good old days of IRC channels and shit and smurfing people and whatever, my understanding of a troll is, this may have evolved over time and I might be out of touch, but my understanding of a troll is somebody who is kind of going out of their way to actually wind people up, trigger people, kind of point out things that are wrong and make arguments for the sake of it. Would you kind of agree that's a general definition of a troll?
We say troll in a light.
Yeah,
we say troll about you in
I'll
a
also say
way.
I sometimes do that, but for the most part, and what we'll try and stick to on this
isn't admitting it the first step to recovery.
Yeah. Denial is definitely one of the early stages. So, but what we'll stick to with this segment is, and before you both tell me off, what I'm going to come up with a topic, but you guys by all means can be a bit passive aggressive as well, or find something that kind of irks you throughout the 3 weeks. And I'll find a topic and I'm gonna raise it, and it may be like a rules issue, it may be some law debate that I've seen, or fluff kind of argument, or any other burning issue really that comes up. But I have a very set topic in mind. I do want to caveat this, and it will be the same for future episodes. Again, I'm not intentionally trolling in this segment. You may actually see me trolling on the interwebs, but genuinely, I am not trolling. I have a serious opinion about some things, and this is one of them. I'm not trying to bring anybody else down, ruin their fun. The hobby is for everybody to do whatever the fuck they want. You can look at my models and slate them. You can laugh at my terrible painting, and I feel that I'm entirely entitled to do the same to you. Especially if you put pictures up on the internet, I am not going to just immediately put anybody down. I'm not going to go like, lol, that's shit. But there are certain boundaries that I have and things that really do trigger me. So with that in mind, if you really can't handle a bit of criticism, don't recommend you listen to the rest of the segment. Maybe skip it a bit. Although these two lads will keep me under control, hopefully. But this week's topic, right? Are you ready for this? This week's topic.
Just Nick, just before you jump into the topic, we'll just say, this is something we don't want it just to be your soapbox. We're opening this up to anyone listening to feedback. We've got a Facebook group, we've got an email address. We'll give you all the details for that later. Feedback to us. If you just want to call, call Nick a prick, just call him a prick. But let's try and keep it constructive and let's open the debate up to the community and see what we can discuss.
Yeah, and that is the reason for this. This isn't just us ranting or me ranting to you guys on Facebook and chat. This is something I think needs to be brought up. This is something that we can discuss. Other people can laugh at or cry about, whatever. That's fine. But this is the topic. The topic this week. This month. I'm committing to a week already. The topic this month is, for 30k specifically, too much fucking wolf. Okay. So people in 40k may be well aware of the more wolfy muck, wolf-tastic, wolf-licious, crazy amounts of wolf licking.
Son, I heard you like wolves, so I put wolves on your walls so you can wolf by your wolf.
It's gone insane. It is absolutely ridiculous. You've got wolf people, thunder wolves with wolf pelts, with wolf fur, with wolves riding them, wearing wolf pelts, with wolf tails and wolf pubes and God knows what. And their names are, Captain Wolfie McWolfenstein, Wolf Murderer of the Wolf Clan, and it's bonkers, right? So that's fine, but keep that out of Heresy. Keep that out of 30k. Forge World, as we've seen in the previews, have done some amazing work with the very early Volker Fenrica stuff. Okay, we're going back. We're going, kind of Viking. We're going runic. We're going sigils. We're going They are taskmasters. They are the brutal executioners. They care about getting in there and chopping shit up. They are not Wolfie McWolfpelt, 40k Wolfpelt everywhere, right?
But
so my issue, that's fine, okay, to an extent. If you're converting models for 30k and you want to use 40k bits, that's fine. That is the same with any Legion. They have varying degrees of bling, and you can carry those over. You can use a sword, you can use the frost axes, you can use whatever else you want. And a lot of the rules for Vulcan Fenrica kind of Legion stuff we don't have yet. That's great. So we might end up with frost axes and all that kind of stuff. But for now, if you're making a model, I just personally feel, and I'll open it up to you guys. I feel that the theme across the entirety of the Legions is a lot more subtle, deliberately by 30k, by Forge World in 30k. And it's a lot more about a powered armored unit that has some kind of embellishment. And a lot of the time, that's not necessarily for bling purposes. A lot of the time, that is about just the way that Legion may even operate sometimes. It's not just bling and iconography and loads of crazy. It's not wolf pelts coming out everywhere. So when I see a load of Mark IV Marines that are all painted in Space Wolf colors and they look awesome, and then they've got like a sergeant that's got a dead wolf on his head, and he's got a wolf pelt cape, and he's got a wolf pelt loincloth, and he's got wolf pelt tassels on each of his knees, and he's got his pubes plaited that look like wolf pelts, and he's got a massive beard, and he's got a frost axe, and I'm just like, this is so like, it just immediately screams 40k for me. For me, it's an immersion breaker, and the whole point of portraying a Legion on the table and playing 30k and forging that narrative immediately gets squished, because I just go, oh, that's a 40k model, or that's a very 40k-ified Wolfie McWolf. I'll expand on this topic in a minute, but initially we're just going to go with the wolves. So I'll pass it over. Tom, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. There's definitely, there's a lean towards the kind of more realistic tones. I mean, obviously, and I've said it a couple of times, and I don't want to play on it all the time, but I've worked with the MK guys, been on their courses, and Matt Cain's style is definitely the more realistic kind of, everything is practical and functional rather than an ornate, priceless heirloom. So there is a bit, 40k tends to be a bit cartoony. It tends to be a bit strong with the visual iconography. The wolf is clearly, an important icon in the Legion as well. It is. Russ, and it's his famous image. It's more of a case. I don't think it's so much a case of not using wolf icons. It is that kind of issue you raise of the it's a more kind of subtle approach to it. A lot of the stuff we saw at the open day with the color plates from Inferno. There's clearly knot work and gilded knot work and wolf iconographies, but you tended to find it was a legionary with a couple of wolf totems or maybe some teeth or something around a van brace, rather than like you said, a freaking wolf on his head with a cloak and everything else. But
yeah. So when even on the sergeants and the characters, it would be some teeth from a wolf that he killed as like a rite of passage. He keeps the teeth. He has it as a necklace or a little thing. Obviously, the seers or the Iron Priests and all these kind of guys are going to have a little bit more embellishment. They can have a little bit more runes and that kind of stuff. But even then, we don't see the librarians and we don't see the full-on like just craziness of wolf pelts everywhere. And yes, the wolf icon, we've seen I don't think we've seen transfer sheets yet, but the wolf pads, it is the wolf head. That is the Legion symbol. That's fine. They laugh in the Black Legion library of their name and their language being translated as space wolves. They mock that, but they equally quite like it because it's funny. People thinking of them as as wolves, so they're happy with that. But
it's the image they allow themselves to be portrayed as.
So that's fine.
To complement what they're trying to achieve.
and I get that. I don't know how people can come into the hobby and look at. And again, this is purely people no one gets upset if that's how somebody wants to play the hobby and they think they want to just keep making and painting kind of 40k looking Space Wolves, but say in their 30k or whatever. That is totally fine. I am saying my opinion. For me, it ruins that immersion. And it just looks like I'm playing a game with 40k stuff, and I don't personally like it. And I think that if I was going to do, definitely if I was going to do Wolves, I would go much more, lean much more towards what Forge World are trying to replicate. And as you say, part of that is the studio choice of color scheme. Part of that is the MK guys and whoever else was involved in developing the schemes, painting the studio models. Yes, a lot of them can be clean and they can be stylized in a particular way. It doesn't have to be particularly grimdark or gritty, but a lot of them have a lot more weathering and that kind of thing. But it looks a lot more like a Legion without needing to be kind of without needing to use the iconography to an extent. You can kind of look at any of the Legions and you know what it is. A lot of the time that's through the color schemes they've chose, much more so than the iconography and the bling. And I think that works so much better for 30k because there was so many more of them. You're talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of legionaries, and yes, they may have been the heroes here and there and the characters and stuff, and they might have had particular armor. Or obviously, if you go to the extreme of black shields or shadow legions, and as you progress through the timeline, things change. But they simply weren't like that. If you read the books and if you read the lore and if you follow everything that Forge World are putting out, and as far as I'm concerned, yes, it's anybody's hobby and you can do whatever you want. But we're buying into Forge World's vision, and Forge World's vision is not 40k Space Wolves. So when I see people producing that, posting it to a 30k group and saying, "How do you like my whatever?" I just look at it. I'm like, this isn't a 40k group. And so this leads me on. I'm going to ask. Can I just ask Stu for his opinion on this before I've got to get this rant out. I've got to get the next step of the rant out. It's like burning inside. So Stu, what's your opinion?
Hold it in. I agree with both of you to some level. From the sort of aesthetic point of view, I don't like it as much myself. I was turned off by the whole modern 40k aesthetic anyway. I don't like, as much as I really, really appreciate the super clean paint jobs that you see from the heavy metal team. Is actually incredible. I prefer something that's a little bit more akin to the military modelling style that you see with the Heresy stuff from Forge World. I think that's much better, and it feels a lot more mature and adult to me anyway. So yeah, I get that from that aesthetic. I don't want to see that on there. I'm a bit of a sort of an old Space Wolves fan for my couple of dabbles in 40k. I did probably build and paint more than I actually played with, but and I read some of the Bill King novels back then, and I actually enjoyed those, and you can see where all that the Wolfie stuff comes from, and if people have read that stuff, it seems to be natural for them to go and do it. But I think the ultimate thing is tone it down. I think that's the way I would do it. I would try not to put too many of your bits from your plastic 40k sets on it, and try to keep it to a minimum. Remember that some of the Legion is going to be Terran, so they're not going to have the same background, and it's I think that's the way I would do it. But like you said, it's people's own modelling choices at the end of the day, and people will naturally produce. They'll go for the easy option, and often the easiest option to make your force look like a Space Wolves force is to add the easy bits to it, and I think that's why you see so much of it. Maybe that will change when the next book's out and there's more colour plates and there's more models released. People will tend to copy them, what those models are like. But until that's
good stuff,
released,
great. So that to me says Stu's on my side. We ban them all. Excellent. Right.
It's like it's working subtly. You can use your 40k bits, maybe embellish your sergeants, your praetors, a bit more, not as much as you would in 40k. You can still use the wolf belts and things, but use them in a more subtle and limited function. If that's kind of where we're at.
So we'll move on slightly from that before I go on to the second major part of this round. But keeping with the Space Wolfy sort of stuff, sort of. But I saw a model recently, and it did kind of trigger me a bit. And it wasn't. It happens to be a Space Wolf. It could have been any model. I've seen it on other models. And that's basically continuing the idea of having too much 40k related bling or too much 40k bits in your bits box. It happens a massive amount. with other legions as well, which I'll touch on shortly. But this happens to be a Space Wolves model. Someone to build up, and the actual overall model did look amazing. And then I saw the painted model, and it looked really cool. And I said to the guy, looks great. Gave it a like. Really enjoyed it. I did, however, I didn't troll because I genuinely wasn't trolling. I actually meant what I said, and I pointed out to the fact that this guy on his model and a kit bashed, kind of 40k Terminator model with some 30k stuff, he had an icon on the knee pad or on the shin pad of the Terminator, and it was the Crux Terminatus. Now, the Crux Terminatus, as everybody knows, is supposedly very, very rare, and it's only on the... Oh, here we go, I get my fluff completely wrong. I believe it's only on the first... Yeah, so it's a piece of the Emperor's armor, tiny piece. I don't know how big his armor was, or how big the dude was, or how many times they split it up. But there's a piece of his armor that is then made into a symbol to represent that you have earned the right as a member of the first company of your chapter. So the Terminator
it's an honor. It's the honor to say you're. You
can use a Terminator.
It's not actually just the first chapter. It's just the Terminator. It's the Terminator honor, because you get members of the first company who are Vanguard or Sternguard vets who may not actually run Terminator armor,
but they have the right. It's shown that they've earned the right because they're
to run Terminator armor.
To run the Terminator armor. So that in itself says to me we are talking post 30k. That is a 40k thing. There is no arguing about that at all. Nobody went around during the Crusades. Nobody went at any stage and started chipping off fucking bits of the Emperor's armor. Nobody walked into the Golden Throne and sorry guys, I've been out on the fringe battling, and by the way, there's a heresy going on, and high-fived some custodes and pushed open the fucking doors to the Golden Throne and went yo emps, and then jumped on him with a chisel and hammer and took bits of his armor and made the Crux Terminatus did not exist in that timeline. It is a 40k emblem of honor post the Emperor getting his shit kicked in and being interned on the Golden Throne.
Yeah.
So if you've got a 30k model and you're doing that, take the time, and it is literally another 5 or 10 minutes work to either slice off the Crux Terminatus or to use your Dremel or other sanding implement tool of choice. There are other drills available. I'm not just here to to sales pitch Dremel, but they are fucking awesome. And sand off that Crux Terminatus. It would take you... I mean, the stuff I do, and I'm not an expert at all, it will take me 30 seconds. On that note, there's an amazing guy who's been doing the rounds on some of the Facebook groups, and it's drill like a fucking neurosurgeon or something, and he basically shows you videos of him using his Dremel and doing crazy conversions and drilling out heads in Terminator models and changing the heads and doing crazy stuff. Sometimes he completely fucks up a 40-50 pound model, but that's hilarious. But the point is, you can just sand that Crux Terminatus off, and it's done, and you have an amazing looking model that somebody like me isn't going to come along and ruin your day by picking holes in when you post it online. So it takes literally no time at all, and suddenly you're back in immersion territory. You're back in... That is a Space Wolf model that looks fucking awesome, and it fits the era. Otherwise, people like me, I look at it and I'm like, that's a 40k model. It has a Crux Terminatus on it, or whatever the bloody thing's called. That ruins it for me. Tom, over to you. Are you happy to see Crux Terminatus on your 30k models?
I'm going to phrase this correctly. Yes, I think you're right with the Crux Terminatus. There are certain icons that don't appear till post heresy, is it the Palatine Aquila? The Aquila that's on the chest of the Mark 8?
Oh, it's a whole other. This is a whole other discussion. I've had so many arguments about this as well. So just to jump in there before you carry on, Tom. Sorry, let's get to the bottom of this first. So the Emperor allowed the Emperor's children to use his personal iconography, which is the Palatine Aquila. It's the claw and the one wing, right? Fulgrim. Yeah. Is over justifying, with that for something else. He's got massive wing. And the Emperor's children are allowed to use that. That is not the Imperial Aquila. That is not the eagle, the two-headed eagle, or whatever. That's completely a different thing. Yeah, so the two-headed Aquila was... So when you see people arguing about that shit, that drives me mad. But, yeah. Crux Terminatus, the
Imperial Aquila, that was granted to the loyal legions after Terror to signify that they were loyal legions, wasn't it? That was one of the reasons it was given out. So, I see a lot of, there is a lot of talk of plastic, using plastic. And I'm not a hashtag resin master race like our friend Christopher over at Vangarian. I got no issues with plastic. But if you're going to use plastic and 40k bits, take your time, look at it, shave off that Aquila. It's not right for the time period and the frame, what we're trying to, like you said, it is immersion, so a bit of time to shave it off the chest, no problems. I'm happy with the rest. I'm not going to sit there and pick out, that shoulder pad there is Mark 8 and that didn't appear till, M32.
So
but
again, the armor argument,
the obvious stuff
all
needs
the time. Yeah, this comes up. The armor issue comes up all the time. Again, if you look at something and it is so obviously just Mark 8 or later armor, it personally, it triggers me, and I perfectly understand that I have issues. And I should be able to just let it go. And many other more emotionally stable and secure, people are perfectly capable of doing that. But I think if you're making the choice to do it, you should do it properly. With things like, with Calth and the next box set, there is no excuse whatsoever for price, especially when you can get 25% off. And there's just no excuse for that at all. Especially a lot of the time when you see they've kind of started doing some conversions and they're using, I see stuff where people are using 30k guns. They bought upgrade kits or guns for Forge World and then they're putting them on Mark 8 armor, and I'm just it makes no sense when there's amazing Mark 4 stuff available. So that's a whole other argument though. I agree, it can be converted. Some of it looks great, some of it looks like artificer armor, some of it can look really cool, but for me there are very specific very, very specific niche things, and one of them is, as a great example, the Crux Terminatus. Full stop. You cannot argue, and that was the main thing that really triggered me about this as well, was when I pointed it out politely, the guy really didn't like it and was like, well, blah, blah, blah. But it's not a 30k thing. So, say what you will, I don't like it. Anybody else got anything to add on the whole kind of things being slightly out of whack, bling being slightly out of whack, before I move on to the second ranty bit?
I think
I think we've covered it, unless you've got anything to do.
A couple of things. I think sometimes people's motivations for doing things are going to be different, and you clearly like to have everything looking historical in big bunny ears, and I'd prefer it that way. Also, some people might just not know when they're building things. They might be new to the hobby, or they're new to 40k or something like that. They might not realise. Oh, I knew what the Crux Terminatus was, even though I'd been away from 40k for a while.
Right. So in that,
that's a
great example. So in that situation, if I shared something on the internet and I spent ages doing it, and somebody turned around and pointed out that something like the Crux Terminatus was completely out of sync with the timeline, there is a term for that, and I can't remember what it's called. Somebody will tell me. No, it's not that. Something chronology. There's a term. I can't remember what it is. There's a term for something completely out of sync. It's like when people, you see these photos, and then there's that didn't exist at the time. There's a whole thing now about time travelers on the internet, on the conspiracy and the truth, truth hunters and people that have old black and white photos, and there's people there that look like they're on a mobile phone, or they have a digital watch on, and it's way out. I can't remember the term for it, but that is basically it. If I posted something and somebody said to me that is wrong, I would go, awesome, thank you for pointing that out. Is there anything else you dislike? I would then go away and take off that Crux Terminatus. I would not try and defend it, and whatever. But sorry, back to you, Stu. Go on.
Yeah, no, well, that's just summing up the point, really, is that you would think, oh God, I want to change that because it's not right. Some people would feel very defensive about someone challenging them, or even if they thought, oh, maybe he's right, he's caught me out. Not everyone's going to admit it. It's going to be personality based, isn't it? And some people just will use what they've got. It might not be that yes, boxes of Calf are cheap, but they might have had some Terminators sitting in the box for years and haven't got any money to buy at the moment, but they really want to play. And we got a couple of young guys at the club that are maybe using bits that we wouldn't use, and I think it's just horses for courses, really, isn't it? That I would prefer to see everything looking as it should, and I'm sure a lot of people would, but I'd rather see people playing the game than worrying too much about little bits and things. But I definitely wouldn't put them in my own armies.
Yeah, I mean, on the positive side, I've seen the other side of this. I don't know if you've seen James at our club, his Iron Warriors. It's basically, I think it's about 4K, very limited amount of resin in there.
Yeah.
he's built his Medusa Siege battery for his Iron Warriors out of the
his
40k.
tanks are great.
40k Stalker kit with the barrel cut down.
Really
Looks
cool.
awesome, so good. I mean, he put I think he put a model under my nose and went, "Oh, what do you think of this?" And it looked like he put the autocannon upgrade kit on. I went, "Oh, that's nice. When did you order from Forge World for the autocannon kit?" He said, "I didn't. That's the Calf heavy bolter with another bit cut off and stuck on the front." I was like, "Man, that looks just like the Forge World kit." So on the same hand, I've seen people do the other way around as well. Really good. But he's taken the time and he's looked at the model and he's looked what he's tried to replicate there.
Yeah. So to be clear, I am not. Going back to what keeps us going in the hobby, I am all about kit bashing. I am all about kind of bringing out a vision of some model that I have. And a lot of the time that entails using 50 different kits and bits, and I order stuff at all different bit sites and stuff. And
50 winged helmets.
It looks bonkers. It looks bonkers. Like, that's fine. And I'm not like against that. I'm not being totally anal about using the wrong armor type or that kind of thing and going, blah blah. They were never supplied with Mark 4. They only ever had Mark 2 and they were stuck on the fringe. So that's ridiculous that you've given them all Mark 4. Blah blah blah. I don't necessarily care about that, but generally, and like you said, that guy's models, like his 30k conversions, they look really cool. That I'm happy with. It's just those little things that just break it enough when they're so clean cut that they're wrong. That's the issue I have. Which leads me into the next bit. So shall I go into the second kind of part of the rant?
Let's go on to the next bit.
So we had the too much fucking wolf. The next bit was actually earlier than this. This has been building up inside me for probably a few months now. I'm surprised I haven't had a coronary and fallen over and died by now. But basically, while I was complaining about the wolf, the Blood Angels are even fucking worse. Okay? Oh my god, the amount of Blood Angels out there that are Mark 4 and absolutely covered in 40k bits. So you buy a Mark 4, whether it's Cheryl Calf or wherever you bought it, and then you put both winged pauldrons from Sanguinary Guard, and then you put the winged sword or axe for the Sanguinary Guard, and then you put the winged Power Fist or the winged Inferno Pistol or Flamer on the other one, and then you put the Sanguinary Guard jump pack, and then you put a Sanguinary Guard head, and you're looking at it and you're like, that is a Sanguinary fucking Guard. That is not a 30k Blood Angel. And for months and months and months, everything I saw was basically that, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is 40k. I was proved wrong. Do you think maybe finally. That's Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, do you think that's maybe a product of the fact that we've had very limited information about the 30k Blood Angels? I've only really seen them in one book and another short they feature in Vengeful Spirit as well. There's a limited kind of, and people are going to the iconography and the images that they've got to to work off. I know a lot of early space.
Yeah, to an extent, I appreciate that, and it's exactly the same with the Space Wolves.
Yeah,
like that. To an extent, that's justifiable. I totally agree. Yeah, I totally get that, and I do not doubt their special units for wolves will be Wolfy Muck, Choppy Wolf, and for Blood Angels it will be Bloody Muck, Emo, Fly Angel, Tears people. But that doesn't mean that your normal TAC Marines or your squad, your ex squad, should have wings coming out the arse and blood drops on every single surface. It looks ridiculous. Up until last week, I had not seen a single Blood Angels, and even from a lot of the big studios, and I appreciate some of them or the vast majority actually commission painters, so they may be following their customers' orders or customers' requirements, and obviously Stu, you'll know a lot more about that than I would, but or they're giving the models built and they're painting them, that's fine, it's not their choice. But a lot of these models, I'm looking at, I'm just like, and even the conversions for character models people are putting out there, they're just 40k models. They're like, none of them suit the 30k theme. Up until last week, and this has been months and months of me, passive aggressive, like chewing onto my desk with my teeth, like, oh my god. It's just welling up inside me. Last week I saw, and it's really bugging me that I haven't got it. I will make sure you guys have a link so we can post it up. absolutely awesome looking Blood Angels. They had some 40k bling on them, rather than using 30k upgrade kits. I don't even know. I don't follow Blood Angels, so I don't know if the Blood Angels upgrade pads are available. I know the helmets are, but I don't know if the pads are.
There's
pretty
torsos
sure
and and helmets, I think.
torso helmets, right? I know the helmets look amazing. They look very cool. They're kind of subtle nods to parts of Sanguinary Guard and Blood Angels overall. Really like those. This set I saw somebody had done some Assault Marines, and they looked amazing. They were using 30k bits. They'd mixed Mark IV they'd used Forge World Assault kits. I think they were Mark IV, and they'd mixed some minimal 40k bits in there. So I think like the Sergeant had a winged sword, which is fine, and then a few of them had some other bits and bobs on them, but it was very minimal, and that coupled with the use of the Forge World Studio scheme that we've seen in the color plates, it was just like I looked at it and it was a breath of fresh air. In my mind, bang, someone has actually represented the Blood Angels exactly how Forge World, and therefore, as far as I'm concerned, me and most people, again, it's not just my opinion, it's how I view Forge World pushing and what we should be buying, and what we're picking up what they're putting down. That's how Blood Angels should be. So I know it can be done. I know it's not just me imagining things or going off on one. And I know the color scheme works. I know they look amazing. They look really, really good. They don't purely just look 40k. They actually look like their own entity, and they fit the theme. They fit the universe. They still look like Blood Angels, but they don't look like they've fully embraced and evolved into the over the top, 40k Sanguinary Guard as an example beast that they could be. So I know it can be done, and I want more people out there to go and embrace that rather than just falling into the trap. And I think partially it's being lazy. I appreciate partially it's that people, as Tom said, are falling back onto what they know. They're making use of what they have, but I don't see that so much as an excuse. I totally appreciate what you're saying, but I just want more people that are doing Blood Angels to stick to the kind of 30k aesthetic and throw a bit of bling in there. But
it's that kind of thing about subtlety again, isn't it? It's use the parts, use the embellishments. The Blood Angels are known, even in 30k, for being more embellished than say other legions, and they do look for that. But it's the subtlety. You don't need 30 TAC Marines with bling off their arses,
with double wing shoulder pads and winged
the sergeants will have some bling. The sergeants will have a few nice bits. Your Praetor's going to be pretty well dressed, but your line squaddy might have again the odd token, the odd icon here and there, but isn't going to be artificer armored.
Yeah, and again, it's just my opinion. Don't get me wrong, but if somebody sticks it under my nose, which in this day and age means putting it onto a group and asking what people think, I'm going to be polite. I'm not going to completely go off the wall. But if you're asking for my opinion, I'm gonna, you probably paint it way better than I ever could. They may look amazing, but I'm going to give you. I will comment, and my comment will probably be a bit brutal, and it will be. I do think that has too many wings on it, and I think it doesn't suit the 30k theme and kind of stylized look. So, and to an extent, this does. So it was mainly too much fucking wolf, but it was also too much wings on the Blood Angel stuff. It kind of has started a bit with the Dark Angels, and again we can fall back onto they don't have so much released. There's more books recently coming out with the Black Library, and some of the stories are amazing. Yeah. There's a bit more detail coming out about the Dark Angels, but again with the models, we don't have so much to go on. But all I'm seeing with the Dark Angels straight away, and whether these are Dark Angel players coming from 40k and 30k, whether these are people wanting to play Dark Angels and therefore they're googling Dark Angel images, and what they are finding is 40k stuff, and they're going, oh, that is how Dark Angels look. Whatever it is, and a lot of the old artwork is leaning a bit towards it, but suddenly all I'm seeing for Dark Angels is robed fucking monks everywhere, just like walking around going fucking chanting. That is all I've seen. And again, the wings, I'm starting to see Dark Angels with winged helmets and winged shoulder pads and using Blood Angel bits. Everything's bloody wings everywhere. And I'm like, just can't, like, it doesn't literally mean you have to turn it into an angel. It is a big power armored killing machine. They would have been generic Legion armor. Yes, there was artificer armor. Yes, there was characters and people who had experiences and were able to embellish themselves a bit. But it doesn't mean you need to immediately just fall back onto those lazy tropes of Dark Angels wear robes and Dark Angels have wings fucking everywhere and whatever. Yeah.
I think
some of the subtle, awesome ones, they don't need to rely on that or fall back on that. And again, I've seen some amazing stuff recently. So
I think the robe thing with the Dark Angels, I think you were going to see more robes in general. I think that's kind of well covered in the books when you read Descent of Angels and things like that. Even when they're power up, they are described as wearing the Order's robes quite heavily. I don't think it's going to be quite the full, the monastic monk, everybody's got a hood up, but I think you're going to see more robes in the Legion than maybe you'd see embellishments on other Legions, because I think it's more kind of core to their identity. But yeah, I'm in agreement,
So
not every dude's going to be fully robed up.
Yeah, and I mean, we go on like quoting books and people I'm sure will send in stuff like, page 58 of whatever, it says blah blah wore his robe to breakfast, lunch and dinner and whatever. But it's like, that's not how they all would have been all the time, and it is just a lazy trope. And all I want is people to have a little bit more creativity and a little bit more imagination, and not just fall back onto that kind of lazy way and go, oh look, it's a Dark Angel. You don't need to do that to make it obvious that it's a Dark Angel. And not only that, but we have the black Dark Angels. That is the coolest fucking thing ever. If Dark Angels were black in 40k, I would have done that Dark Angel army that I wanted to do. Like, for how many years ago I wanted to do it? I would have done that immediately.
Spray it black.
Exactly.
You get away with not having to paint it then.
Stealth Dark Angels. No one will see them coming when they're in the shadows with like chanting. They'll just get scared because there's weird noises coming from the shadows and they run away, and then you bolt them in the back. But like, it doesn't suit the theme. You don't need over the top stuff. A subtle wing here and there, and more focus on like the knights, the knightly order, the chunkier armor. Like some of the coolest Dark Angel artwork that I've seen, a lot of it may not be official, so maybe I'm kind of being, going against my own ideas here, but some of the coolest artwork I've seen is more about the knightlyhood rather than the monk. The monk plays into it heavily, but it's more about big shields, big knightly orders, riding around on horseback, and it's more leaning towards that. And the further you go into, again, closer to 40k, I think more the 40k novels talk about that monastic stuff. Yes, it's a core part of Dark Angels, and they have the orders, and they all turn up robed and hooded and chant, and they've got their little secret like meetings and stuff. But again, I just feel you don't need to fall back onto that. There's so much scope, and initially there's so much options. So
cool. All right then. Anything you'd like to chime in with, Stu, lastly, and we bring the rant to an end?
No, I think you've covered it really. It's very similar to the Wolfie stuff. Is that it's down to what's available, isn't it? It's really easy to pick up cheap Blood Angel, Dark Angel, Wolfie bits to add to your Calf Marines. It's probably a lot. Some of the price is going to come into it from some people, rather than looking at a £44 upgrade set for 10 bodies and 10 sets of shoulder pads and 10 helmets. People are going to go, oh, that's quite pricey on top of my cheap Calf set. It's supposed to be a cheap way to get into it, so they're going to go for the cheap stuff. But the imagery as well. I think Neil Roberts' artwork, I think it's Descent of Angels, that's got a hooded guy on the front cover, isn't it? And he's got wings on the helmet of another guy. So you can see why that kind of stuff comes up a lot. But I know what you mean. It's not what I'd prefer them to. I nearly did Dark Angels as well, and I definitely not planning on putting robes everywhere. I'd much prefer the upgrade kits as they are, and that's a good place to take your inspiration from, really. But stick to your plastic Marines and just paint them the Legion colours, because most of them would be normal. That's
line infantry.
Saves you some cash as well.
Okay, so
cool,
to me that
excellent.
sounds like ban ban Stupid Wolfie McWolf, ban Blood Angels. But
No,
Dark Angels are fine. Dark Angel robes are
So,
fine. That's what
I think what we'll do is draw a line under it and just make a simple statement. I think what we've come to the conclusion is that Nick is now the arbiter of all conversions, and if you'd like to submit your ideas to the email address, then we'll get Nick to approve all heresy conversions from now on.
Yeah, it may take me some time to get back to you, but
no. In all
I'll
seriousness, I think the underlying message is, the heresy seems to be, the underlying thing is the heresy is more functional. The armor and the weapons are not precious relics. They're not embellished. They're not holy relics. So subtlety with your work is I guess the kind of thing I think all three of us agree on.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Excellent. Then we'll wrap that up there then, and probably go off to a break. Welcome back to the G52 podcast after the little musical interlude there. We're going to move on to the first of our high concept episode sections to borrow from our good friends down under. We're probably not going to be quite up on their scale just yet, but I think we've got a nice subject to start with. We're going to look at, what would have happened if Forge World hired the older M. Night Shyamalan, whatever his name is. Basically, we had a big reveal with the twin Primarchs that really messed things up for a lot of people. It changed the canon. Suddenly we had 19 Primarchs, not 18. And it gave us something new, and it really was a bit of a bombshell when that landed. So we're going to discuss what we think could be the next bombshell to come along. What could Forge World do to, shake the canon up a bit. So I'm going to throw it over to Nick then. What do you think they're going to do to really shake the canon up then first time?
Yeah, I was really shocked. I've had conversations before about Alpha Legion, and for me, that bombshell of the twin Primarchs was just mind blowing. It was a real kind of game changer for me on a lot of levels, because I realised suddenly that Forge World, while they had certain fixed points in the heresy timeline, and a lot of people had fixed ideas in their minds around what the heresy was and what it meant to people, and for me that kind of harked back to that original diorama of Sanguinius being chopped to bits and blood and feathers all over the stairs, and the War Master walking up the steps to gut the Emperor. That was like all I knew as a kid. And then you fast forward reading tidbits and bits in codexes and bits in the rulebook, and kind of you had that idea roughly of what the heresy was. And Forge World clearly had this amazing vision and released the books, and they've added so much to it while still having these cornerstones, these pillars, this foundation. They've got this scope, but they only have certain fixed points, and even those are slightly malleable to an extent. So when I came up with the concept, really, it was because I was watching a really bad film the other day by M. Night Shyamalan, which I don't think anybody can actually pronounce his name. And it reminded me of that kind of old joke that he doesn't really make films. He doesn't write stories. He doesn't direct films. He makes twists. He makes plot twists. There's a great South Park episode about this. It's fucking hilarious. But that kind of got me thinking, what is it that Forge World could do? And they have so much scope and so many kind of options. What other things could they do that could be like so mind-blowing in the same way, in the same sense that the reveal of the twin Primarchs was? Because I just never saw that coming. I don't think anybody did. It was such a groundbreaking event. And it really did say to me, yes, there are other options out there. Forge World can do crazy shit. So I started thinking a little bit. I was like, well, this has happened, that's happened. We know A leads to B and B leads to C. And looking at the timeline that Forge World keep updating and releasing, and the one we saw at the open weekend, where they showed you the timeline with the different battles that they've created, or the fluff they've expanded upon, and how that fits in. I really just kept going back to that idea of what could they do that would be the next mind-blowing kind of twist. And what I kept falling back on, and this shows really how I'm just a kind of mouthy, ranty bastard rather than someone who's actually creative in any sense whatsoever, is that I kept falling back on how about they either kill another Primarch that in the current kind of canon fluff is technically alive, or there's some reference somewhere to him being alive in like 40k sense timeline, so he's either disappeared or missing or is in a stasis field or whatever. Could they would they have the balls to actually change like how malleable is some of that lore and fluff? And I didn't really know too much about it. There's certain things I knew, so I kind of knew that White Scar's Khan was disappeared in the webway or something, and they kind of lean in towards that. But a lot of I won't go into too many spoilers, but some of the recent books, there seems to be some kind of linkage between the themes of the webway and the Khan, but not necessarily. But current fluff lore canon is that the Khan disappears chasing Dark Elder or something into the webway, so he still technically could be alive out there somewhere. Could they kill him off? Could they change that? I haven't looked too deeply into the citations and into where some of this is in the lore, but there's a few characters where you think they could just kill them off. And it could be, so a lot of the traitor Primarchs, if you look on Lexicanum and Wiki and all these places, and it just says, Primarch is Demon Prince, Primarch is missing, Primarch is whatever, and some of the citations aren't there, so I haven't read enough into it, but I really get the feeling that a lot of the stories are slightly more shaky than others.
Yeah, there's definitely some fixed stories with Primarchs in there. It's pretty well established Gilliman sat on McCrag in his stasis field. It's pretty well established. Horus is killed. It's pretty well established that the various demon princes are the demon princes. It seems to be more the loyalist Primarchs that have got less well fleshed out stories. We've got Russ obviously disappears into the warp. Vulcan is missing. Corax is done his emo Nevermore and runs away, kind of stuff. There seems to be. Do you agree? It's maybe more. There might be a bigger spin for a loyalist Primarch because they don't seem so well fleshed out.
Yeah, I mean that does seem to be it. When you look at, again, I haven't fully gone kind of academic on it, but when you look into a lot of these kind of references and things, some of them are a little bit weaker than others. Some of them are a reference here in White Dwarf, or they're a little snippet from a codex, and you think, well, again, is that somebody's view somewhere,
but as we
reporter or remembrance, rather than the actual truth? Is that something that the Imperium knows as fact, which is bonkers because so much of
that's
it
the thing we're dealing
unknowable.
Really, we're dealing with unreliable witnesses and unreliable narrators, and actually the 40k fluff we're coming from, we know, is a huge propaganda machine, and things are being, there is quite clearly, sometimes, you've had in the heresy where things don't quite add up to the way 40k is. The result might be the end, but the story is different as to how it got to that point.
And harking back to the Alpha Legion again, it's a great example in there is supposedly there's this report of a battle and Alpha Legion using Alpha Legion tactics and thinking they know how Gilliman's going to respond, and then he doesn't, and he goes for a ballsy Alpha strike, and he tries to cut the head off the Hydra, and they think it's successful, and then you find out that actually they're responding in ways that would normally be how they would normally fight, and they think actually maybe I didn't kill him. Did they kill one?
Yeah, they fall back.
Was it Omegon rather than Alpharius? And then the final part of the report is basically, this is bullshit. The final entry is it was made by some guy sat on the side of the street that saw the battle, and then it's scrubbed from Imperial records anyway, or the Inquisition aren't sure of the source, so they don't trust it anyway. So there's lots of bits like that where in my mind it leads to these thought processes of holy shit, they could either kill off another Primarch, or do crazy
go on,
shit.
then.
We're the ones that like
Stick your neck out on the block. Let's go with the killer Primarch idea. Who do you think they're going to kill? Who would you kill to throw the cannon out?
I hope they kill. Sorry, no. I mean, it would be such a shame if they killed the Canary. If they killed like Budgie McCorvax.
So you think they'll do him for Corax? I mean, we don't get a lot of information of what he does from the drop site, do we? And we don't know. We don't really get much. We know Jagatai goes into the warp. We know Russ goes into the warp. We know Vulcan's lost chasing Darkadder, but all we get from Corax is he vanishes, doesn't it? So, I mean, the scope is there.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at it and you think, how much of it is set in stone? How much of that is malleable? How much can they change? And how awesome would it be for there to be a book released where he's battling, it's nearer the end of the the heresy, or at least nearer the end before the March to Terror, and something happens, and then like basically near the end of the book he gets fucked. Like, how awesome would that be? Everyone would just be like, holy fuck, we thought he was alive, and then he just gets, because you know what I mean, it's it's a bit like fucking Game of Thrones. The reason it is popular and the reason it's done so well, apparently, according to people who are more knowledgeable than I am about these things, is that no one is safe. You get attached to these big characters, and then they get their head chopped off, and you are like, holy shit, I did not.
Yeah, I mean, that's the classic Argyle Tal thing, isn't it? You read First Heretic and Betrayer, and you really get attached to Argyle Tal, no matter these are half demon, half Astartes. And then, I don't know, spoiler warning, shut your ears for 10 seconds if you haven't read Betrayer. I think everybody's read Betrayer by now. He gets stabbed in the back by Erebus and, is killed. And you do go, oh, fuck, I thought he was going to be, going to stick around. So, I mean, Forgewood obviously aren't beyond killing off a big character, a popular character.
Little violin, a few tears. Like, oh,
yeah.
So, I think it would be amazing. Again, clearly not creative enough to be remotely in charge of any of the shit, but I think it would be a great idea to kill off one of them and just have like an awesome battle centered around it, have maybe a couple of books building up to it, and all this awesome stuff going on, and then just get one of the Primates get wrecked. It would be so amazing. Now the problem is, obviously, it really shoots them in the foot, because it means that the wider GW corporate machine that want to pump out models won't be able to then release them in 40k. And as we know from all the rumor mills, people like Russ, who was seen going off into the warp with his his wolf guard that remained after they got the shit kicked out of them, and on the way to we think the wolf co is coming. That might be a discussion for another day about which wolf is being culled and who's doing the culling. But I think that with Russ supposedly coming back as one of the potentially the plastic Primarchs in 40k. We've seen the story evolve in 40k with the Wolf Guard coming back, and they are now, the crazy wolf people going around chopping everybody up, and the Inquisition and the Dark Angels don't trust them and then blowing the shit out of them. Russ potentially coming back, Plastic Magnus potentially coming, all that shit's kicking off. So you think, how much would they shoot themselves in the foot as far as sales go?
Well, maybe certain legions they wouldn't touch, isn't there? Especially the biggest selling ones in 40k. They're very unlikely to tread on the toes of any upcoming release.
So on that,
killing Corax probably wouldn't really affect sales that much, would it?
What if it's?
So does that point to the least popular then? Would that be more leaning? He's one of the Lone Guard are one of the least popular, but they do have models, they have upgrades, they have a little bit of lore, and they've kind of got a little bit of a following. White Scars seem to be the least popular.
Can survive without them, and I think the whole idea of the Raven Guard being small detachments and elite forces, you don't really need Corax to sort of keep that going. It almost seems part of their psyche. I don't know. I just don't think they would do it with any of the.
What if it's maybe not a clear cut, Ferrith Manor style head lop and Horace wandering around talking to his skull kind of job? What if it's maybe, like you said, the the battle for that maybe it's not just Korax going Nevermore and leaving. Maybe he fights a big battle. He's isolated. He's on the verge of being killed. We don't, but there's a chance he can escape, and the book ends there, where we're not sure he is, and he uses his famous line, and we don't know if he escapes or if he is lost, and it's maybe
So
more
I'm fine-
ambiguous.
I'm
Change,
fine
where-
with that, as long as in the second book, because it's a two-parter, the first line is, and then he had his fucking head chopped off. I don't mind. They can do that, that's fine, but sell the second book, have him fucking decapitated, that'd be awesome. So, what kind of led me to this in a way is that I really, really, really love Night Lords. They are so fucking cool. Ninja, like Psycho Batman is awesome. But I can't bring myself, and we've had a discussion before, Tom, I couldn't bring myself to play, for some reason, again, character flaw, don't know what the issue is, couldn't bring myself to play a Legion with a Primarch that I know is dead later in the timeline. So that cuts out quite a few, and it's a very, very weird issue to have. But I couldn't do it. The other kind of conversation I had with some people around this topic led me to thinking, what about instead of completely killing off one, which by the way I think should be correct, should be called. What about if they didn't kill one of the people, and it's more likely potentially to happen?
Yeah.
Because it means that they can then bring models back later.
Well, you're hoping
So-
Kurz don't get killed, don't you?
I'm
to play
hoping.
Night Lords?
Yeah, I'm just like, but you as you were arguing, the whole point of his character flaw and the whole story arc of like 6 books, 8 books is that he has to die because he's seen it and he knows when he is going to die.
But
And
it's
the whole like Greek style tragedy, the whole classic like character flaw and stuff is that it leads to that. You can't have him and have his story arc without him dying.
It goes. I mean, it's not just Kurz's story arc. I think that affects. I think it also brings into the idea that the Imperium is not a good thing. The Emperor is not good. I know the term order versus chaos is bandied around rather than good versus bad, but I mean, I think we see, especially in the Heresy, a duality to most characters, and especially Kurz. He is a murdering psychopath, but he is fighting against what he sees as the inevitable sort of, the Emperor is not as good as, he's not a good guy, and actually by killing Conrad, the Emperor, he's confirmed, not only that Conrad saw the future coming, that actually that the Imperium is in a good place either, because they send wanton murderers out to murder people as well, regardless he's a maniacal psychopath. But, it's that kind of, it's not just vindication for Curzon, I saw this coming. It's kind of the vindication of the Emperor as much of a tyrant as anyone on Nostromo was.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, Trump is a murdering psychopath, and he's going to be president of the US. So,
Yeah, can we just throw the word allegedly in there before I get a CIA hit?
I will take the bet. Let's go. Come on.
Without gambling on CIA hits. I mean, it's bad enough knowing Chris from the Vangarian. I'm now constantly worried every time a van pulls up next to me that it's not going to be some Swedish snatch and grab operation.
Oh, I thought you meant in case it's a Trump slash and grab operation. That'd be even more scary.
Oh no, I don't know. Powerful Swedish. They're strange boys up there.
Yeah, it's all that extra oxygen and ice and shit.
Cool. I think we've kind of run to a point with that one. There is some serious stuff I think with killing a Primarch. They could definitely be done, couldn't it? It definitely might throw the cannon out, or as you said, not just killing a Primarch, maybe someone surviving who doesn't, who we don't think survives.
Yeah, there's so much scope. There's so much scope, and I just hope they don't kind of play the safe card. I hope they realise the options they do have. I hope they realise that some of the kind of bravest stuff they've done has been the coolest. So some of it is quite divisive, and some of it causes a lot of debates. But then I think that keeps the hobby alive as well. And
it's better to have the hobby talking than even if it is a divisive discussion, rather than just that's what we knew was going to happen. So shall I throw my theory back at you?
Yeah, go for it. What have you got?
Excellent. Well, I've been watching far too much X-Files recently, and I've got into a bit of a conspiracy theory hole. So, what if the Emperor was killed alongside Horus? Not just wounded, or not just screwed over completely, actually fucking dead. And what has happened is it's a massive conspiracy by Dawn, who couldn't bring himself to come back to Terra and say the Emperor is dead, knowing that it would probably result in the same result as Horus winning the war, that the Imperium would fall apart. Is he takes the body, he goes down to Terra. The Sigillite is not dead on the throne. We know that the Emperor can run the Astronomica without without needing other Psykers. He runs it while on Great Crusade, while campaigning across the galaxy. So this thing in the 40k fluff, the Emperor's fed 1,000 Psykers a day to power the Astronomicon? Maybe that's because it's not the Emperor. We know the Sigillite is the second most powerful Psyker next to the Emperor. Maybe they're keeping the Sigillite alive on the Golden Throne, and it's the Psykers that are being fed to the Sigillite to keep them alive, and it's actually a massive lie. The High Lords of Terror are aware of this. They know it. They know what's going on, but they don't want, their power is derived from being, the appointed representatives of the Emperor, and they derive their power from the myth the Emperor is there, and they continue this myth because if they don't, they lose their power, and they divide and fracture it. Maybe, it's all a massive cover-up.
So that's interesting, because for me, the Sigillite Malcador is one of the most interesting characters, because we know so little about parts of his past. We know so little about
almost
his
nothing.
power. Like, he took a backhand from one of the Primarchs. I can't remember which one, and flew. Probably
Dawn. Usually backhands people.
It was one of the was it Lorgar or I can't remember. It was one of the traitor guys, but it might have been
so Dawn then
or something. So yes, it's Dawn.
I think
basically,
you're right. Lorgar backhands him, doesn't he? On
somebody,
Monarchia.
Something like that. But it's all about the
fact that
your
ass.
He's so a mystical character. He is an incredibly powerful Psyker. He's incredibly clever.
We never know what he's done to earn the Emperor's trust, do we?
Exactly.
How did he get to this position?
Yeah, and he's definitely on the same side and the same wavelength up to a certain point as the Emperor, and before he goes off on his own little missions and things, and we don't know about to what extent the communications. We know tidbits about him or the Emperor communicating to him while he's busy doing what else he's doing, but it's such an interesting character, and something like that could be amazing, and it could go so much into the other part of the story which hasn't been fully explored since Rogue Trader, around like you said, the Emperor being potentially being an order god in direct opposition to the Chaos God, and him being a material realm force that also has an ether body, and there's so much there that could be expanded on that we don't necessarily know about.
It shakes the foundations of 40k and the Scouring and the Age of Past and stuff without bringing it down, if that makes sense. You can the story can progress because it hasn't fundamentally shifted anything, but it makes you realise the Imperial faith, the Imperium of man after the heresy is built on a massive lie.
And as you said earlier, so much of 40k is brainwashing, is memory wiping, is propaganda, is Imperial creed, Imperial truth, and all of that would potentially fit into the idea that it's not just trying to keep chaos at bay. It's not just trying to keep emotions in check. It's not just trying to keep everyone dumbed down and focused on reproduction and building and manufacturing and fighting all of these threats. It's also the fact that no one questions anything or looks inward to what the potential truth is. That could be awesome, and there's so many books that could spin off from that, and there's so many, like you said, that could be weaved into the 40k timeline.
Dawn doesn't have a huge story up till now. You know, he's obviously fortifying Terra, and he pops up in places. There's obviously Praetorian of Dawn coming out, which is going to come out soon, which should hopefully expand on it. But post Heresy, Dawn again, you know, bar the Iron Cage, he doesn't have, you know, a vast story. You know, this could, you know, penance for the Iron Cage. You know, it's not just he let the Emperor down. The Emperor is dead, and he goes to destroy himself at the Iron Cage. You know, and it's only when Gilliman comes along and kicks the shit into him to make him realise he's being a dickhead to carry on.
I was waiting for how you were going to somehow twist this.
Gilliman turns up and sorts it out again.
It's an Ultramarine conspiracy. Like, it's not anything to do with Dawn.
Well, let's face it. Gilliman set up a new empire. Gilliman set up a new empire. He's not beyond doing what he believes is, you know, potentially heretical for the furtherment of the Imperium, is it? You know, and you could see Gilliman getting in on this. Yeah, we've got to keep this lie open. We've got to, you know, we cannot afford to break the Imperium up. We'll tell them the Emperor's on the throne. You know, you can see that happening, can't you?
I think it all works really nicely, but only if it stayed as a rumor. I think if that actually happened and became a
it would have to be a massive secret.
Then it kind of blows away everything. It works as it's a secret, or is it a secret? We're not sure. It maybe is, maybe isn't. As soon as you know if it was a secret and that's canon, that's it, and we know. I think that kind of then just destroys what makes that whole storyline powerful, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I agree to an extent with that, but I see where you're going with. Obviously, the whole the draw in is that. The Emperor's on the throne and he's fighting the battle, and like that's one of those corners, like I said earlier, one of the kind of foundations, the cornerstone moments we know of the heresy, and so much hangs on that. But at the same time, I think it's
only a small tweak to say the Emperor's really wounded to dead, isn't it?
It could really, and it could really open, and without blowing everything else out of the water, it could really open the storyline around the bits that people are interested in.
See,
to more potential. So, you know, you got like I said, the Psychers being fed to keep him powered. You've got the Black Ship still about trying to find the Psychers and trying to find the Perpetuals, and the whole Star Child stuff. You've got all of these other threads of story, which again are being explored in 40k, especially now with the kind of end time stuff with the Eldar, with the Harlequins trying to find the Perpetuals, with the Dark Eldar, with Gamora being broken into, we think, by Chaos coming through from a gate that's sealed. They're trying to discuss like fixing the Golden Throne for the Imperium, and they're like trying to kind of parlay with the Inquisition. There's loads of shit going on that is all of these different threads related to the Golden Throne, the Emperor, Psychers.
Yeah. And how much of a twist would it be to say it's not the Emperor on the throne? Because the Star Child theory that he is actually out there, you know, he has been reborn. The other either
as one soul or potentially actually split up.
That's multiple
souls. They need to either be killed or they need to sacrifice themselves, like the shamans did originally, to kind of rebuild him, you know, or even that he is now just an entity in the warp, and he is still. How about this? Here we go. How about he's still actually defending the Webway Gate on Terra?
Yeah,
but
from the warp
side. Chaos, but he's purely in the warp now as an entity, as God. Yeah. That could be expanded on in so many ways without ruining what I think Stu was getting at around it being such a cornerstone thing that as soon as it becomes fact, it kind of ruins it in a way.
Well, I mean, I can't remember who was discussing it the other day, but I know I was listening to it. Do you know Old Pearson from the phrase in the Ultramarines book? No Fear. He's one of the Perpetuals.
Yeah.
If you go back to the diorama we were talking to in Warhammer World, the very classic Emperor Horus, Dead Sanguinius diorama, there is an Imperial Guardsman at the back. And he's credited as being Old Pearson, and the legend of Old Pearson is the patron saint of the Imperial Guard, because essentially during that battle he affixed bayonets and charged Horus and got blasted out of existence, but he gave the Emperor that break he needed to get a chink in Horus's armor and destroy him. So I mean, you've got an unreliable narrator because I don't think when they come to write that final battle, they're not going to write it from Horus's point of view. They're not going to write it from the Emperor's point of view. It's going to be written from an outside perspective. So Old Pearson makes a fantastic outsider to view, and we get right to almost the crucial point of the battle where Old Pearson charges them and dies. So the narration ends there. We don't actually see the end of the battle, and then maybe another book picks up from Dawn, and maybe whoever's with Dawn comes into the thing. So we never actually see, the end result, the climatic final blow. We see the build up to it, to a crucial point. We see the end result of it, and that gives us that ambiguity then to throw a conspiracy theory in that is the Emperor actually dead? All from third parties, no direct first eyewitness to the battle. Allows you to build that ambiguity, the conspiracy, the whispers. You can imagine on Terra that after that battle, there must have been rumours rife through the Imperial Court about what happened, and it builds that. A lot of people have been praising the what's the series that GW Black Library been running, the Beast Awakens series. One of the biggest compliments that's come out, and one of the things I'd praise is the time they've spent at the Imperial Palace talking about politics. The way the Imperial Palace and the High Lords of Terror are acting, it allows you to build on that kind of stuff and allow it to become a bit more political. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I love more stuff than that. I actually get bored if there's too many pages of bolter porn, to be honest.
Oh God, yeah.
I'd rather, that's for the gaming table really. It gets a little bit yawn.
Yeah, I think was it me and you, Stu, were having the discussion. The most interesting stories in the Heresy are the human stories. Where there is a human being involved and there is a relatable story, because the stars are unrelatable. And it's great to hear some fun bolter porn. I think Nick, we were talking about the latest White Scars book, where he's jumping off a jet bike onto something else and blowing it up and jumping back, and it's cool. But the thing that really draws you to the story, the human element, isn't it?
Absolutely, the intrigue that you get and the layers, especially you get that. I love Dan Abler's writing for that, because you get loads of human.
You guys can have your human stories. I want tentacle porn, Emperor's Children,
through paintings. Cool. Well, I think on Nick's tentacle fetish, I think that draws nicely to a line. Anybody else got any final comments either on killing a Primarch or surviving a Primarch or the Grand Conspiracy?
No, I think we've got that covered.
I say death to Corax and keep Night Lords alive.
So you want the pigeon? You want the budgie dead and vampire Batman to survive?
Fuck yes.
Fuck yes. All right, then I think we'll take a break there, and we'll probably come back and wrap this little show up then. Right, welcome back to the G52 podcast. Hope you enjoyed the crazy wanderings we got off to there, and a few different ideas, and maybe if you want to shout out some ideas, your theories, what you'd like to see, what you think could happen, we'd love to hear it. Best things to do is drop us a line. We've got the Gino52podcast@gmail.com. You can send us an email, let us know. We've got a little Facebook group going, the Gino52 podcast. Find us on Facebook there. We're on Twitter at Gino52pod, Instagram as well at Gino52 podcast, SoundCloud as well, Gino52 podcast. So you get the running vein there. You can find us there. Personally, I'm on Instagram. I'm at Tom Stallard. You can find me on there. I post a lot of hobby crap on there. You'll probably see me circulating on a few other groups as well. But there we go. So that's where you can contact us if you want to feed back to us, if you want to give us any ideas, send us lists, all the usual crap that the Heresy podcast want to see. If you think Nick's completely wrong, send us a rant back at Nick, and we can discuss your rant. If you want to send us cool models, post them up in the Facebook group. Just let's get a hobby community going. So guys, anything else you want to
add? Probably not. If you want to get in contact with me, anything painting wise, just check out Miniature Realms on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. You'll find me on there. Other than that, no. it's all good. Please send stuff in to argue with Nick about. I think.
Yeah,
Keep him
we'd like
busy.
to see him take you on, and we promise if you get a good rant going, we might even get you on to discuss it with Nick as well. We always we encourage some active debate. Nick, anything from you?
No, just thanks to you guys. It's been a great chat. I suppose the only other thing would be check out the kind of Gloucestershire, Cheltenham gaming scene. We're trying to grow the 30k hobby. It's taken off really well. There's guys nearby from Worcester as well. They've got loads going on in that area. Just get in contact if you're in the area or you want to come to any of the events. And hopefully we'll, as Tom said, hopefully we'll get the scene growing.
Yeah, I think we'll give a few shout outs. We're part of Pork Chop Gaming. That's where we club. We're part of the Pork Chop Gaming Club. So you can find them on Facebook if you're in the Gloucestershire area. We play on a Tuesday night and a Saturday. We don't just do Heresy. There's 40k, Infinity, X-Men. It's a really good buzzing group. Loads of Magic players, all kind of stuff. The Pork Chop group is kindly run out of Incom Gaming. You can find them online. Google Incom, INCOM Gaming. Have a look. Chip's a really cool dude. He's been into 40k for a long time. He's got square-based Eldar that gives you how long he's been kicking around for. He's finally finished painting his Eldrad model, his metal Eldrad model. Yeah, with Goblin Green bases, and they brought out plastic Eldrad, and he's kicking himself. So, I mean, seriously, give him a shout. He's a great dude. If he's not on his website, get in touch. He'll get it for you. He'll do you a discount. He looks after all us, so we'll give him a shout out. Incom Gaming as well. And yeah, the guys at Six Up Save, met them at the 40k tournament a few weeks ago. Really good dudes. Had a great game with them. They kicked my ass repeatedly from here to next week, but they were good dudes, and they got some really interesting stuff going on. They've got a really good Heresy scene going as well, so we're going to try and hook up with them. So, give them a shout. The other podcasts, obviously, you've got the Horus guys. We've got the Vangarian Heresy. Those dudes have been really good to us lately, looking after us. You might have heard us on there. We have formed members of their half guard, and we're now trying to beat them at their own game.
The half guard.
You've got the Age of Darkness guys, JP and Mark. Great guys over in Canada doing their thing. The Forgotten Legion guys. The guys from Texas, the webcast, Radio Free Van. All the stuff they're doing down there, that's pretty awesome as well. Shout out to Greg as well at the Imperial Truth, keeping the British scene going as well. We're hopefully going to, work alongside and, support that bit of the hobby in this country as well. So if that's all from me, guys, anything else from you two?
No, I think you've covered it all.
I've nailed it. I'm gobby enough.
Left, hasn't it?
Yeah, so we're going to finish off with Nick. We have talked him out of playing Evanescence on our first show, so we're going to leave you with Nick's music choice, and hopefully we'll catch up with you guys soon. Cheers.
Tom. Cheers, guys.
Noticing all these changes, what in the fucking ranges? Right out all these pages, you should have filled with weight. Right now, jumping to the stages, with the mama see your bullshit for ages. This time I'm working it, I'm flanking. Your smile, see you in a state of way of thinking it. From Hertz Island, we expanded, never delivered or landed. World and the label demanded, competition telling us to follow those guidelines, stay right-handed. Blood, music from the heart, lyrics from the hip to my head, and I'm left-handed. My friend, watch out for the traitors. I seen them, flying across my eyes for the haters. My friend, watch out for the traitors. Don't take my eyes for the haters. My name is Alexander, race fist commander. Sick of a ship never stranded, like trending ultimate branded. 16 years never disbanded, from Hertz I we expanded. And I try to keep myself sober, till the door